I hereby call the Kansas County Board of Commissioners in session. Please all stand and say the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all here and welcome those individuals that may be live streaming this or watching it later on YouTube. And I want to thank you for your interest in Kansas County government. Commissioners, you all received copies of the bills in your Dropbox. Any questions or discussion, or may I have a motion?
I will move that we pay the bills.
A motion by Commissioner Nissen to move. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Commissioner Anderson. I'm going to call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. You as well received copies of the minutes from our last meeting. Any corrections or additions? A motion by Commissioner Gardner to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Commissioner Endek. I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. First up on our agenda is Glacier Lakes Water District and some bids. And I understand Colleen Thompson won't be here, but Mr. Ordinance will be dealing with that. But first, before you start that, I just had a quick question. As the Director of Public Works, do we have enough money in our budget for salt and sand? Since the little furry guy said we got 6 more weeks of winter.
Is that what I was going to say? Well, there was no sun today, so
I
isn't
don't
winter
know,
over?
yeah, I question that.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe he's wrong. Okay, we'll deal with that later.
So, but on that note, every time it snows, it's about $25,000 to $30,000 a day that we spend on snow removal. So it's $1,300 a route.
Well, based on that, then we're hope he's wrong.
So we hope he's on.
Yeah.
And the
Thank
good
you.
part is we are in the black yet so far.
All right.
So with any luck, we'll be able to do a few more miles of overlay. So we're queued up for that. As we talk about, we always kind of over-program in case we have a good winter, and then we use the money savings for overlays. So,
Please.
all right, down to, this is the recommended award for the water plant filter project. Just briefly, we have an executive summary in your board packet, and we also have a budget in here, but we replaced one filter a year ago, and the other 3 are 20 years old and were in need of replacement, so we did those more of a planned replacement. So we would have 4 of 4 replaced when this is complete. We opened bids at the last meeting. We received 5 bids, and the low bid was KHC Construction out of Marshall, Minnesota, in the amount of $210,000. So it's our recommendation to award the bid to KHC Construction on Marshall to do the base bid plus add alternate number 1, which is the 4th filter. Okay, we wanted to do it and make sure we had enough money when the bids came in. So it's my recommendation to authorize or to award the project to KHC.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Commissioner Endek?
Mr. Chair, I would move on the recommendation
Okay.
of Mr. Odens.
Okay, a motion to move by Commissioner Endek. Do I have a second?
I'll second
A
it.
second by Commissioner Nissen.
I do have a question.
And a question,
What happened to item 2 and 3?
Oh, the item 2 and 3, one was a generator and one was a valving.
Okay.
And what we wanted to do is we just thought we'd throw it in as a bid, because if the bid came in cheaper than we could do it ourselves, then we would do it under the bid, okay? And the other thing is that it's capital, and what we're using to fund these filters is some excess bond proceeds when we did our lift station project. So what we wanted to do is test the market, because those things need to be done, but the price we got was not cheaper than what we can do it ourselves. So our recommendation is to delete those 2 and 3, and do it in alternative methods.
good question, good comments. Okay.
I just
Any other
have to
questions or
see.
comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same time. Pass unanimously. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now I'd like to call upon Mark Thompson, or actually Kathy Peterson from the Auditors Treasurers, about a hearing request.
Morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Just like the agenda says, I'm here to request a public hearing be held at the next board meeting on Tuesday, February 16th, for the purpose of the consideration of an off-sale full liquor license application, which was submitted by Barney's Convenience Store. Just to give you a little background, the county currently has no ordinance in regards to an off-sale full liquor license. We have issued 3-2 off-sale licenses in the past, but no full liquor license, off-sale full liquor license. The applicant proposes to operate a liquor store in Dover Township, located where the former Tom Thumb store was at, by Eagle Lake, Highway 7123 Eagle Lake. The Dover Township Board has approved the application. The liquor store would be a new addition to the building. And I also asked the board at the next board meeting to consider a fee for this license, since we've never issued one before. Just a little background on that too. The city of Wilmer, they charge $950 for an off-sale full liquor license. So again, that's my ask today, is just to schedule a public hearing at the next board meeting to consider this application.
And this is to consider a new ordinance that we have never
Well,
had.
I'm gonna defer that to Shane here. He's up on the statute, and
No, it wouldn't be an ordinance by any means. It's just simply a public hearing to approve the license itself.
Okay.
And that's what's authorized by statute 348.405. 2D discusses no license shall be issued unless a public hearing is held on it.
Okay.
And this was the statute I'd found. I had Kathy check with basically state regulators, and they cited the same statute, so I think we're good to go on the procedure. It provides the notices that need to be given, so that would be the process set for a public hearing. Review it then. As with all licenses, I and the sheriff also have to sign off, and there's a portion of their application that has signature lines for that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that update.
I had calls a couple of months ago already on that, so the rumor was going around for a while.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, one more thing, I would recommend 10 o'clock at the next board meeting, if you so decide to.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Emdek?
I'll make that motion, but I do have a question.
February 16th at 10 o'clock.
The public hearing for,
Okay.
10 o'clock, February 16th, okay.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? A second by Commissioner Gardner. Now, your question?
this is more of a clarification. You're saying we do not have heretofore, we had not had a full liquor license, but we do have wine and beer, correct? Or is that actually a different regulation?
That falls
like
under the
a
3-2,
winery is maybe-
3-2 wine and beer,
And then
What?
on sale.
Well, there
Yeah.
is off sale.
yeah, there's off sale at Sunray. Sunray has a
Well, they
3-2.
have a 3-2, but they don't have strong beer.
No, but wine. Because Glacier Ridge
Kathy wants to
Winery would be selling wine.
But that may be, but that's probably under their wine, that's not.
It might be under the farm,
That's
it
under
might
the
be the
farm
Minnesota
license.
Department of Agriculture that
Yeah,
does
that's
that
under
one.
their
So
farm
that's the
license, not under
clarification I
ours.
was
Yep.
trying to make.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just from a process standpoint, is there a need to amend the ordinance, or is this mostly a one-off here?
I'm going to defer that to Shane again. Did you hear the question, Shane?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it might always be a good idea to have an ordinance on the subject, but in talking with Kathy, this is the first time we recall it ever occurring for this kind of off-sale liquor license.
The cities have them, but
Not in, because most of the time it's within a city or town in the county.
I hate that we might have to be reactive on something like this, but I'm just wondering if we at some point in time don't need something on the books. That's all I had.
To add to that, I guess if you think that there's going to be more of these in the county outside of the cities, right now we only have, Wilmer and the other cities that have the full liquor license, the liquor stores. This happens to be one in Dover, just outside of Wilmer, and that's what's causing this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second to set a public hearing for our next board meeting. And I will call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Mark. And now I'd like to transition and proceed into a public hearing on,
Can't start.
You gotta wait till 10:30. Yeah. You can't start until 10:30.
thank you very much for the reminder. So I'd like to call on Administrator Kleindahl and fill in until 10:30 when we can proceed with our public hearing.
That's correct.
No singing or dancing, though.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll talk really slow here.
Are you going to just go down to administrative announcements, or just, you got several things on the agenda, too?
Yes, I'll just go right down the agenda, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. The
Please
first thing I
proceed.
have that I would like to talk about is a pilot seasonal tent rate for Big Candy East. In my 15 years of being a county administrator, I've never had a request that someone wanted to have a seasonal tenting rate. And so we have two individuals that would like to have a seasonal tent site on Big Candy East. And there's a lot of small logistical things that could come up with a tenting area. When you have seasonal campers, you have a pad and stuff where the camper goes on, you're not killing the grass and stuff. We generally don't have a seasonal site, a pad set up for tenting. And usually, the tents move around and they come off the grass and stuff, and so you're not killing areas. I'm willing to give this a try. Just like we have with our other seasonal campers, if they rent the tent site for a full season, a seasonal, they get a discount. Right now, our tent sites on a daily basis is $23. And so if they stayed at this year pilot for these year two tents, if we did a pilot test on this, 1 to 29 days, if they camped, they would have, the tenting would be $23 a day. If they go 30 days plus, I'm recommending $16.50 a day. And then the managers and the county would split that fee. So we generally don't set rates in the middle like this. We usually have it in November or December when we have our park manager meeting. But you know what? We want to try to be creative with our parks, and if somebody's interested in trying it, until we get the camper cabins out there, I think it doesn't hurt, and that's why I would like to call it a pilot.
Okay, Commissioner Nissen.
Just a question on the, well, you brought up the grass, or is there gonna be they have to shift them a few feet here or there? Are you gonna have some rules like that to protect
So- That's a good question, Mr. Chair. And then so I have talked to Chad Kluver, who is the park manager, and he has recommended, he would be rotating the campsites. So again, how do we do that? And if they leave the tents there, are they taking the tents up and down? And so those are some things we want to work out as a pilot. But
Yeah.
most likely, they're going to have to rotate them, because if if you leave a plastic
Yeah,
base on a tent in a week, that grass starts to turn pretty yellow.
yeah.
Mr. Kleindahl, one question I have, and you don't have to answer this, but you may not be able, we start talking about seasonal tents. There's tents come in many shapes and sizes. And is there some regulation as to how big a tent, and if it's going to be there, for the whole season, they might get pretty elaborate. Just something
Yeah.
to think about, anyway.
I am thinking about, because if you think about what the campers look like,
Yes,
you
exactly.
used to have the pop-up campers, and those used to be the thing, and now you have campers that are more expensive than most people's homes.
Yeah,
And they're 50-footers, and they got, double bounce outs, and yeah, you're right. And that's why, again, I keep wanting to say, this is a pilot. If this doesn't work, I would ask.
One more.
Commissioner Nissen.
Just 2 spaces?
Choose, yeah.
Do we also have weekly camping down there at Candy East?
Yeah, we, one of our parks has a tenting site. We don't have a lot of tenting sites, and our tenting sites requests, they're not a lot of them. You know, people are going away from it. I think generally people will tent for a little while and then they decide that's enough of that and I'm going to go to
Yeah.
a different type of camper. But
Okay.
I'm encouraging it, and I think I'll be talking about this at the next, one of the areas, as we start building camper cabins and stuff like that, allowing some options. Our parks are always evolving. And so, as I was talking to Commissioner Gardner about the parks and stuff, one of the things we want to do, though, is we don't want to get in a situation where we have all of our tent sites or all of our camping sites seasonal. The whole intent of having parks is giving people the opportunity to come and stay at our parks. And if you lock them up by seasonal, you really are cutting people out of that opportunity. And what we want to do is give families and people that experience of the great outdoors, especially in Candido County.
Yep.
Yeah, Commissioner Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As long as we're talking about camping rates, there's a significant difference in the interest to the outdoors, as you've already alluded to, now compared to what there was
Pre-COVID.
a year ago. And I don't know, do we adjust our rates on an annual basis? I think, quite honestly, I think we're leaving some money on the table in terms of our camping.
Mr. Chair, glad to answer that. Good question. We do review our rates every year. In November last year, or December, the board agreed at my recommendation that we'd remain at the same rate this year. Our rates are very competitive to where we're at statewide. When we did our park study, one of the things we did look at as our rates. One of the thing is, are we leaving some money on the table? Yes. But we're also making it affordable for everybody, not just those, with those campers. And those are the things, that's a fine line and a hard line, but we do review it every year, Mr. Chair. And so that's something we look at all the time. Good question, though.
Yeah, and part of, you're exactly right, that it's a real fine line to find that sweet spot. But, we've made some significant investments in our parks in the last, just in the last 3 years. And the value continues to go up where we've made those investments.
If Mr. Chair, if we were going to try to regain those dollars that we put into the parks, whether it be for bathhouses or fixing parking pads or the electricity or the water, you wouldn't be able to afford the camp out there.
All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Anderson.
How did you come up with that $16.50 a day?
So what I did, Mr. Chair, what I did, just like I do at the other rates, I took a percentage of what we reduced it on the other camper sites, and I took that percentage, which would be equal about 28.5% reduction.
I see.
And so with seasonals, people rent them seasonally, but they're not there every day.
Yeah.
And so, these sites don't have electrical or water. And so it just seemed like it was a model I could follow and be consistent across what we're doing.
Okay. And then I had one other
Yes,
question.
please. Proceed.
How many tents will you allow on those sites, on each site? Is it
One.
Just one tent? Okay, because some campgrounds, they allow, multiple, and so
Yep.
maybe they'd have 10 there all of a sudden and
Correct.
big
One of-
party, type of deal.
That's a very good question, and just so you know, that's in our policy, even with the regular campers and stuff, multi-families and stuff being on our site, can't do that.
Okay.
Okay. And you'd like a motion?
I would like a motion at least to pilot this for this year, at least give that option.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner
so
Gardner and a second by Commissioner Nissen. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. The next thing I have on the agenda, I received a letter from Middle Fork Crow River Watershed District. And the letter states, this letter is to inform you that Manager Robert Hodap's position on the Middle Fork Crow River Watershed District Board is set to expire April 26, 2021. Per Minnesota statute, the county commissioners must meet at least 30 days before the term of the office of any manager expiration and appoints a successor. So, Mr. Chair, what I'm asking a motion for is permission to post this position. The notice must be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the Watershed District at least once 15 days before the reappointment. So what I'd like to do is post it now, and on the March 2nd board meeting, we would look at applicants that have come in, and then I would present those applicants to you, and then you would decide who you'd want to reappoint. And so my request is permission to provide notice and then have the appointment set for March 2nd.
Okay. Commissioner Nissen.
I move that we allow our administrator to post the Middle Fork Crow River Watershed Manager position.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further discussion, questions? Not? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, the next thing I have on the agenda is request permission to apply for the DNR Parks and Trails grant. And if you approve it, then there's a resolution 2021-8. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, last year we applied for this grant for Big Candy East and County Park, Game Lake County Park. We received the Games Lake County Park, but we did not receive the Big Candy East. What I'd like permission is to resubmit this grant and
That's a resolution.
and to apply for it. The difference of this year's grant and last year is building materials have gone through the roof. I mean, so this year grant for the newer commissioners is for a new bathhouse on Big Candy East. If you've been out in that park, you know that it's due for a new bathhouse. And so what we'd like to do is construct a 30 by 40 bathhouse. And we'd like to add a couple camper cabins. Would extend a gravel access road and a gravel parking area for vehicles for the camper cabins. The total grant that we're requesting is $468,000, which half of that would be a match by the county. The match for the county is not only just a dollar amount, but can include our in-kind time from Public Works or Sentenced to Serve staff or other employees that work on it. And so it's quite significant higher. Our camper cabins that we're putting together this year to fulfill the grant for Games Lake went from approximately $14,000 per camper cabin almost to $30,000.
Okay.
So this it's a quite an increase in price, but I believe if we can get 50% of it paid for by the Parks and Trail grant, this is the option to go. Our long-term plan that we worked with our park planning, one of the top asks in that was for a new bathhouse in Big Candy East.
Okay.
Is there any questions before?
I do have a question.
Mr. Emdek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's more of a clarification so that we're all clear. The resolution is for applying for the grant, not for going forward with the work.
Right.
The motion is to apply for the grant, yes.
But not to commit to going forward with the work.
Well,
If we get the
If you got
grant,
the,
yeah,
you always turn it down.
I guess I wouldn't want to go through the process of applying for it and get it. You can always back out. As a board, you can say, no, circumstances change, events happen, you can always back out. But I guess what I'm asking, if we go through the process and we finally get selected for this, not to back out.
Yeah. Commissioner Emdek.
perhaps I didn't phrase that as well as I could have. But if we don't get the grant, it doesn't mean that we
No.
have to go forward and spend $468,000.
That is correct.
Yes.
All the surveys and stuff that they generally require for the park, worked with Jeremy Pfeiffer. We're going to hold off on any of those surveys until we do get the grant, and they talk to DNR, and that is allowable. But I agree with you. I don't think if we don't get the grant, we go forward. This is only to apply for the grant.
Okay.
I had a quick question, Mr. Kleindall. If we get the grant this year, then we are committing it for the work for next year then?
You have, I believe it's 24 months to complete from the time you get everything signed.
So that increase will be on the next year's budget?
Yes.
Possibly.
And we would never be able to start this year anyway.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to have a hard time completing what we have to do in games in a timely manner. And so by the time they award it this late summer, early fall, we would never be able to act on it in 21. It most likely would be 22 and 23.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a question about that. In the grant, it showed the plans for the bathhouse.
Yes.
Are you stuck with that plan if you get it? Because I talked with manager Chad Kluver about it, and he would like to have one that would model more like the Games Lake bathhouse.
Correct, Mr. Chair, glad to answer. What we did, Commissioner Anderson, is we took the last bathhouse that was built for accuracy, for price, and from the architect. We have some flexibility on the design of that bathhouse.
Okay.
And so we probably wouldn't need it as big as what we had on Big Candy West. But you have to provide blueprints and the latest drawings, and instead of investing money into an architectural drawing, I used the drawings that we had from this last one to submit it as an option.
Okay, because he'd like to have like a couple family rooms and then maybe like a washer dryer type of deal.
Yeah, I don't, again, they're contracted people, they like a lot of stuff because they don't have to pay
Okay, yeah,
for it.
yeah. Well, I think that's similar to the Games Lake one though.
Yeah, I know,
So-
I agree.
So I just hope you get his input, ask for his input when you
No.
do it, so.
And I chuckle, and I love our managers and stuff,
Yeah.
but the hard part is that part I have to do is say, no, not,
All right, well, okay, all right.
but I agree.
I thought his input was, it
It is
makes
good.
a lot of sense.
It does.
So, and since you'll have it for like 30 years, it'd be
Yes.
nice to
No, I hear
do it
that.
right if we can.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm-
Yeah, okay. Commissioner Gardner?
Mr. Chair, I will move the motion to allow the administrator to apply for the DNR Parks and Trails grant.
Okay, we have a motion to
Include, that's resolution,
2021-8.
correct?
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further questions or discussion? If not, I'll call the question. You had a question?
Yeah, it triggered a
Commissioner,
question that I
okay.
had from actually last evening. In Kennewick County, do the private campgrounds, are they required to have storm shelters?
I would have to talk to our licensor person. The question, Chris, was the private campgrounds, do they have to have storm shelters?
Not for recreational camping, you'll manufacture your own parks.
Give the guy a raise. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
All right, no more questions or comments. I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. And now, thank you very much, Mr. Kleindall. And now I'd like to proceed into, the time is correct, right? Correct?
1 minute.
1
Yep,
minute?
You're good.
Your clock's slow.
Oh, I got 10:30 on my
Yep.
iPad.
Yeah.
By the time I get done cleaning,
Yeah, he's got to clean first, but we're going to proceed and move in and with the public hearing on tobacco ordinance number 28. And I would like to call on Director Lippert to recap some of the stuff and update us on this ordinance. And also, as a public hearing, we'll hear from you and the board. I just want to be clear, we can ask questions of you or the public as needed. And when you're done with your presentation, the board's done, then I will open it up for public comments if we have some. And at that point in time, I'll give some more instruction. Please proceed.
Great, thank you, and good morning. So a little bit of background on this tobacco ordinance number 28. Like Commissioner Berg mentioned, roughly about 6 months ago, we created a tobacco committee to look at changes that were needed to be made to our local tobacco ordinance due to the state changes that took effect this past year in May. Included in this committee were Annie Tepfer, who's here today. She's our coalition coordinator. We have a couple public health staff. Chris Wenish, he's present as well. He's our sanitarian. We have Michaela Holm, who is our shift coordinator. We have a public health supervisor, Jody Ammerman. We also had a DFC board member and community member, Val Swanson, a part of this group. We had past Commissioner Steve Amman. We had representation from our county attorney's office, so we had Assistant County Attorney Rachel Molesbury, and then we were in connection with the Public Health Law Center of Minnesota, and we had a representative that this group had been working in conjunction with to make some recommended changes. So you should have all received and been able to look at the recommended changes that we have for the tobacco ordinance. Those were in your Dropbox. So I'm not going to go through all of those in detail. Also for the record, the public hearing notice and documents were published in the January 23rd West Central Tribune paper and posted on our website for anybody in the community that wanted to take a look at our suggested changes. So in 1997, the Minnesota State Legislature passed the Youth Access Bill, which regulated retail tobacco sales and required compliance checks in the state of Minnesota. The Candioi County Tobacco Ordinance was adopted on November 18th of 1997 as Ordinance number 28. Since then, the Minnesota Tobacco 21 bill was signed into law on May 16th of 2020. The recent changes at the state and federal level have made it necessary to update our local tobacco ordinance. This update will make it easier to enforce these new regulations at our local level and in our community. This is important because the Tobacco Licensing Authority is responsible for enforcing statewide laws that restrict youth access to tobacco. The goal of this ordinance is to reduce the access of tobacco to our youth. Young people are often tempted and can experiment with tobacco products. We know that about 90% of adult tobacco users started using before they were age 18. And now, with these changes, the legal age to purchase tobacco is 21 years of age. There looks like there's a lot of changes to our ordinance, but really it's mainly a lot of restructuring and some added legal terms and definitions. We included section 1, which you'll see is on the first page. This is labeled Facts, Findings, and Purpose. So this is the evidentiary basis for the proposed commercial tobacco control policies and demonstrates the county's reasoning for adopting specific provisions. So that really kind of details out the reason for making these changes. Everyone throughout the state of Minnesota is having to do similar to what we're doing today, updating your tobacco ordinance to mirror and become in compliance with the state changes. I will highlight a few sections. So if you go to section 5, where it talks about the licensing fees. So the licensing fees are set by the county board. It has generally always been $200. In this amendment, we have requested to take out the specific dollar amount and leave that up to the county board so we don't have to come back each time to reopen the ordinance to make any changes. I want to reiterate that these license fees really cover our administrative costs for regulating and overseeing the licensing program of the tobacco ordinance. So I guess today our recommendation would be to increase that fee from $200 to $300. It's been $200 since 1997. That has not changed. So our recommendation would be to increase that to $300 and also add in a $100 late fee. That really mirrors kind of what we have for our food pools and lodging license ordinance. So that would be one of our recommendations for you guys today to consider. The other section, 7, number 5, adds in some language about any establishment only being able to sell products via their storefront. So we're not going to allow the delivery method as being a way to sell tobacco. Again, it's really hard to oversee that. It's hard for Mr. Wenish to have some enforcement with that. So that was an added area. The other section that I'd like to draw your attention to is Section 8B, number 1, where it talks about the administrative penalties for not passing a compliance check. So these have been increased to follow what the state has in place. Our first violation has been $75. Now the state has increased that to $300, so we want to mirror what the state has in place. Second violation within 36 months goes from $200 to $600. And then the third violation was after 36 months, but we want to expand that to 48 months. This would be for the routine establishments who are always non-compliant, and we feel like they could use the extra months to be able to work with them.
Okay.
I would be happy to take any questions. I know we have staff members who have been working directly on these changes, and they'd be happy to come up and address any further questions as well.
Any questions from the board? Yes. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering what the effective date of the new ordinance would be.
Yeah, so we've kind of talked a little bit about that. We kind of, at this time, don't have a set effective date. We know that it's going to take some education and communication to get out to these establishments, whether that's via mail, whether that's being our sanitarian going and visiting some of these establishments. But yeah, we'll make sure that we would get that published.
Then to follow up on that, is there any reason, should we be putting some sort of a date in the ordinance? I'm just asking from a process question, perhaps Mr. Baker.
We should have an effective date put in there.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Emdek.
I would ask anybody, staff, what a reasonable effective date would be. Would it be a year from now, say January or December 31st?
30 days?
Like March 1st.
Okay.
Okay, March 1st.
Okay. And you can get, Mr. Chair, from me, and you're able to get the notifications out to all of the establishments and, all right.
Okay. Mr.
Yeah, that
Nissen.
brings up another question. If we move it March 1st and the fees raise, are they going to have to cough up the entire $100 extra, for example, or is it going to be prorated?
No, all our establishments have paid for the year. We have everybody licensed for the current year. So if a new place came in, they would pay the new fee if they applied for a license after March 1st. Otherwise, if it was prior to March 1st, it'd still be the $200 fee.
Their fee is what if they paid at the first of the year, even though we're changing the rate? Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Gardner, you had a question? I have a question then. Since the increase in the fee isn't on the agenda, and that's going to be a separate motion, correct? Later, after we close this public hearing, do we have to put that on the agenda, or can we vote on that?
You have to ask for comments from the audience.
Afterwards, yes, not now. We're looking for procedure questions.
You can set that at a future board meeting if you wish.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you. So we may have to, well, we could set it at the next meeting. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? Questions?
I mean, you would want to set the fees though prior to that if you want.
And that's why I brought it up.
Have to get it in before.
So would that be enough notice? 2 weeks? Would that be enough notice to set the fees?
Mr. Chair, because most people have paid their fees for this year.
Already?
They're already covered, and it only affected people with the new ones.
Okay, thank you.
So the majority wouldn't have to pay until 22.
Okay.
Okay.
So at this point, they will put it on the agenda for next meeting. Any other comments, questions of the group? Okay, and at this point then, I will open it to public comment, and I'm not sure if there's several people here, but I think I don't see anybody who might be here. If there is anybody, please come forward and state your name and your address. I don't see anybody. I'll give them a little bit, one more minute. Ms. Lippert, one other question. Did you get any written comments from anybody?
No, we did not, unless somebody from the committee member would like to speak, and it doesn't seem like they
Okay.
have anything to add.
Well, at this point, there's no written comments or no public comments. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing aspect of this.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Gardner and a second by Commissioner Nissen. The public hearing is hereby closed. Now I'll go back to address it as the Canada County Board of Commissioners. We have this forward on our table here. Do I have a motion to move on the tobacco licensing ordinance number 28?
So move, Mr. Chair.
A motion by Commissioner Emdek. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Commissioner Gardner. No more further questions or comments at this stage? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same side. Passed unanimously. All right. Thank you very much, and thank you all for all your work on this. It takes some time to, some of these ordinances take forever, and it's certainly due to be updated. Wasn't the original one like 1997, and you did it in one update 4 years ago or 5 years ago? Okay, thank you.
All right.
You want this signed now? And okay, if you take.
Can you give it,
Oh,
take a break?
okay. Why don't we take a recess now, and we'll come back in order in 5 minutes. I hereby call the Candidac County Board of Commissioners back in session. And at this point, we have a professional service agreement to be addressed by Krista Krupa from Environmental Services. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Krista Krupa, and I'm the Environmental Specialist with the Environmental Services Department here at Candidac County. I am here today to request approval of the professional services agreement between Candidac County and Santec Consulting Services, formerly WINC. If you recall, last December, I came before you and there was a resolution that was passed to apply for a grant for a community assessment report. So we passed that resolution for that to happen, and we have been approved for $38,000 in grant dollars. So Santec now, they just formally merged, has drafted up their professional services agreement, and so we are just asking for approval of that today.
Okay. Any questions or comments by the board? There's none. It's pretty straightforward, and thank you. Okay. May I entertain a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Commissioner Anderson. Do I have a second by Commissioner Mdak? Any further questions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you just leave them here? Or, okay. And after we get the podium all shined up and sanitized, next on the agenda is a tax abatement for a fire loss, and I'd like to call him Val.
January 4th.
Good morning, Val.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Val Savor. I'm the County Assessor. I'm here today with an abatement for a fire loss for Kragenbring on their parcel in Harrison Township. They were out of their home from January 4th of 2020 until October 1st when they rebuilt their home. And so I'm looking for a reduction in their taxes in a form of abatement of $898.57.
Okay.
And I did send over just a brief information for you guys, but that's what I'm looking for today.
Okay.
I will make that
A
motion.
motion by Commissioner Nissen. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
By Commissioner Anderson. Any questions or comments? Not? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right.
Air
And
handler.
I think we are all the way down to the final payment on our air handler project.
Morning,
And
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Carlson,
members of the
good
board
morning.
here today.
Good
to,
morning.
Request authorization to make the final payment of $13,000, $421.35 to Chapel for the air handler project at the courthouse.
And can you look back up to?
Oh, yes. So we went out, the original air handler is one big, gigantic fan. Very inefficient for, a four-story building. We looked at doing some upgrades to the air handler, which entailed, instead of having one big air handler, we have 5 small ones. So there's one per each floor, and 2 for second floor, 1 for the courtrooms and 1 for the other side. This really brings it up into modern standards. So there's going to be energy savings, better comfort for the people. And, it monitors itself. Say there's too many people in a room and the carbon monoxide level goes up, it'll bring in more fresh air. So it's going to be much better for the building in whole. Any questions?
Any questions from anybody? I guess one comment. Thank you for being on top of all this and
I
basically.
appreciate
Yes.
the board's support.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
A motion by Commissioner Gardner.
I'll
A
second
second
it.
by Commissioner Nissen. Any further questions? Not? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you very
you.
much.
Well, we're zipping along. What the heck?
Okay, moving right along, we have a resolution for 2021-7, Mr. Oden, and this is an annual process, and it's part of our 5-year planning. Am I correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, what you have before you in your packet is a bridge resolution. It consists of 8 bridges in Candido County that are structurally deficient or functionally obsolete. And every year, what the bridge office and actually the legislature would like is a list of all the bridges that are or qualify for funding. So just as a brief overview, we get dedicated funds for roads. The bridge side is more of bridge bonding. You'll probably hear about the bonding bill every 2 years, and then sometimes we'll do a bonding bill in the budget year. And it's a funding stream that primarily bridge replacements depend on. Okay, it's not probably your ideal funding stream for bridges to be, or anything to be subject to grants, but that's where the bridges kind of fall. You can spend other money on it, but primarily they're kind of an animal of themselves. So what we do every year is they would like to know what bridges your county has that qualify for replacement. Okay, so they put it on a master bridge list so that elected officials know the need out there. Okay, so they know the need. If there was money available, we would need this much money. Okay. It's like a lot of things in life, you can't afford to replace everything when you want to. So what happens is you post them down. Okay, so now what's that start to do? You know, farm to market an egg county like this, or for that matter, we have town bridges on here too, because we manage all the town bridge replacements. It starts to stress your economy a little bit if you have posted down bridges. Okay, so what we do is we push for these bridges to be replaced. But if you can't get them replaced, we keep fixing them, we post them down, we extend the life as long as we can. So every year we do a bridge resolution of the bridges that we would like that are eligible for replacement. And so you've got 8 of them. It amounts to a little over $2 million. 380,000 of that is for the town bridges. I do have a map of them. Just don't ask me a lot of questions about them. But you can see they're all over. So the one thing to note, the bridge up by Regal is currently on this list. So it is getting funded, even though it shows up. It didn't make the list. But then we have a lot of them probably down in the southern district of the county, would be in Commissioner Anderson's, by and large, has a lot of them. So this is our bridge list, and so as you can see, when heavy loads or permits,
The one that says eliminated, what does that mean?
That's a bridge in Edwards Township that has been a request of theirs to eliminate. It's right on the west side of Trunk Highway 23.
Okay.
It's a dead-end road.
So
And
they don't want a bridge
they
anymore?
don't want it.
Okay.
They're willing to make the people whole on the other side of the bridge. And so we're in the process of
Okay.
eliminating that one. So this is the list, and so it's my recommendation to authorize the chair, I think the chair and the auditor to sign on behalf of the county.
Okay. Do I have a motion for Resolution 2021-7?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Anderson,
I will second it.
second by Commissioner Nissen. Any further questions or comments for Mel?
Just one
please
comment.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for keeping this up to date, because the Regal Bridge has been deficient for I don't know how many years, and it just now is making its way up to the top. So getting them on the list is the only way we're going to get them moved up to where we finally get them replaced. And
Okay.
in fact, that one, what has it been now, 2 years that semis haven't been able to
Oh, yeah.
use it with loads?
I think more than that. It first got posted down just before they rehabilitated 71 North from the split north, because that was supposed to be the detour. In fact,
Going on 3 years.
MnDOT wanted to get it rebuilt prior to the detour going on because it added 13 miles to their detour, but not being able to go over the Regal Bridge. And still, and then even 3 years later, it still wasn't. So he finally just got it funded. And that, right or wrong, but it takes a lot of commitment to keep this, the need there. So this is an important resolution for the county, for my world.
Any other questions, comments? Now I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. You need that right now? Okay.
All right.
And up next, we are going to have Ms. Spalding to talk to us about the business relief, MPR, and I'm sure you're going to need some motions from us. And
We do.
I'm
Good morning, Mr.
good.
Chair.
Good morning, and thank you for being here early. We're ahead of schedule for a change.
Well, that's, you're going at a rapid pace, so that's great. So, again, my name's Jean Spalding, and I'm here to assist with the Minnesota Pandemic Relief Program that was part of the county relief program. It was the state-funded portion that was allocated to the counties to assist businesses that were impacted by the governor's last executive order. And so as a part of the Candioi County program, there was 3 tiers of businesses that were prioritized. There was Tier 1, which were those that were directly impacted by the executive orders, and that would include restaurants, bars,
Hairstylist.
No, not hairstylists. They weren't closed. It would have been fitness centers
Fitness
and
centers.
event centers, things like that, things that were actually closed by executive order. So that was the Tier 1 businesses. We also included hotels in that because there was, because of the nature of the executive order, they were basically shut down by the not being able to have their restaurants open, their pools open, and other things. And so those were the businesses that were included in Tier 1. Tier 2 were event centers, and then those businesses that could have been funded by the Department of Revenue's direct payment, but may not have gotten what they would have gotten had they not had their businesses filed under one employment identification number. And so that we were, the intent with that was to work with them to try to make them equivalent to what other businesses would have received in that same categories. They still would be in those same Tier 1 categories, but they may have needed a little adjustment in what they received from Department of Revenue. We're still looking at the applications that we have today to approve are still in those Tier 1, Tier 2 categories. So we do have 20 businesses that applied or be recommended for approval. That total that we're requesting for approval is $314,000. That would include 8 restaurants, bars and restaurants, 7 in the hotel hospitality, 3 event centers, and then 2 fitness centers. And they would have not received funding either through Department of Revenue's direct payment program. Primarily, that would be why they're being considered for the county program. The average loss of the businesses that are in this particular group are 44%. Some of them have losses as high as 81%. And the minimum was 20% for the county program. The average years of business is 10.6 years. We do have, the longest range business is 41 years. So these are not new businesses. There is one business that is in the 1 year, or there's a few that are in the 1 year. But you can see that the average is, these are substantial businesses that, have been around a long time and are a really important part of the economy. And so that's, again, kind of reiterates the need for the program and why the county went with this type of approach with the program. So if you look at what was been approved last county board meeting and today, that would put the program a little over half of the allocation to Candido County as being allocated once this is approved. So we see as we look forward, we've got the program deadline for applications is February 17th. And so we'll have one more county board meeting before that, and then we will have probably one more county board meeting, the first meeting in March, that will kind of finish up the program, because the deadline by the state's guideline, all funding had to be allocated by March 15th. So we are really in line with, not having any concerns with the meeting any deadlines of that nature. I think the whole goal was to get funding to these businesses that are really in need of assistance as quickly as possible, and I think that we've done a really good job in doing that. So that kind of is a recap as to where we are today. I don't know if you have any questions that I could answer for you.
And we'll be looking for a motion to approve this funding.
These grants to the
Up to
20
this point,
businesses for a total of $314,000.
Okay.
I'll make
Go ahead.
A motion by Commissioner Nissen, a second by Commissioner Gardner. Any further comments or discussion? Commissioner Endek.
I just wanted to say, appreciate all the hard work that I know when this first came out, you and Larry were putting in, a lot of hours into figuring out how to be the most equitable about this. And so appreciate the efforts that have been put into, and I know Corky had a role in that as well as a committee person. So thanks for that.
Yes, it's been also a great partnership with the EDC as well. And okay.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thought, Larry, you wanted to say something.
No.
Proceed.
Gene, just to look forward, two things. You have, I would imagine, some other applications yet from those Tier 1 and Tier 2 groups.
The applications are still coming in. We're getting more that are going to be falling into the Tier 3, so they'll be starting to be evaluated, but we did want to really prioritize those that were affected most dramatically by the executive order.
Sure. And that was going to be then my follow-up question, was the folks that fall into Tier 3 nonprofits, and was...
It was any businesses that were, they were directly had impact and were negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic and the closures of businesses. So there really weren't limitations regarding that, except for that. It was the nonprofits and those businesses, but they do have to be connected to COVID. It can't be, there's finite resources here. And so, again, I think we have to prioritize those that were, the legislation was directed. We wouldn't have this funding if it weren't for the legislation and the intent of that. And so I think we're really trying to stay true to that and look at those businesses as they come in.
And so the Tier 3 group then, that funding is contingent essentially if there's any funding left over from your applications for Tiers 1 and 2.
Correct.
And
Yes.
does it look like there may be some funding for potentially some of those Tier 3 groups?
There likely could be limited. Again, we already have some in the queue kind of that have been applying, but they've just been kind of put on hold until we see what funds are available.
Okay, Gene, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Anderson, I think, did you have a question? No. Okay, Mr. Endek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did think of a question that So the CARES Act had some fairly well-defined rules to it in terms of what was available as it came through the state and then to the county and is administered by the EDC. This one allowed for a little bit more flexibility for some people that perhaps fell through the cracks in that one. Maybe they didn't open up their business quite in time to be able to look back on last year. How many of those kind of businesses, of those people, for lack of a better term, or those entities that fell through the cracks, how many did we pick up with this program, if any?
Oh, boy, that'd be maybe a better question for Aaron. We haven't, but there have been some that, for whatever reason, did not apply for the CARES grant funds that are now in this group, whether they would have been eligible or they just didn't apply. Sometimes people hesitate as to, whether they should share their information, or there's a distrust of the system, and so could be a number of different reasons as to why a business may not want to apply, and we did see that with the CARES grant for sure. So we have seen some that we did not see in the first round. Primarily some in the hotel area. It was kind of a big area that. But, Aaron would probably be able to answer that also.
Do you want to comment on that, Mr. Bachman?
I will. Hang on for you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Aaron Backman, Executive Director of the EDC. Thank you. Several questions there. In terms of businesses that did not apply before, I would say that we are at probably about 8 or 9 that are in that category, 3 of which you have not seen today, that are going through the process. We have received a total of 64 applications thus far. You have looked at 34 of those. About a fifth of the applications are Tier 3s, which we're holding at this time to see if there's sufficient funding. And so primarily you're looking at Tier 1s. With this group, you had 3 Tier 2s. So there is, I think, sufficient demand to utilize all the funds. The question will be, do we run out of funds prior to the 17th? Are there some funds that are remaining that could do some of the Tier 3s? I don't think we would be in a position to do all Tier 3s that are before us right now. That said, it's been illuminating to see some of the applications and the financials that have been coming in. Thus far, we've looked at 10 hotels, and 9 out of the 10 had declines every single month this fall. That says to me that they are in a pickle. And so I'm very pleased with that. With this program, we are able to assist some of these hotels, because if you're looking at October, November, December, and it's going down, and hopefully that's starting to turn around for some, that's a pretty stark situation for some of them. Some of them have laid off people or furloughed or reduced hours, that sort of thing. So. And it's correct in terms of what Gina was saying in terms of the business losses. That's been pretty consistent throughout the applications. We're running about 47% for the fourth quarter comparison between 2019 and 2020. So bottom line is that, with your approvals, we've had about 550,000, get approved out of the 830-some thousand that we have available. With the 5 that we have that we're going to consider, and we might have a 6, but with the 5 for tomorrow's EDC Finance Committee meeting, that probably gets us up to about 640, and then we'll see what comes in. It's potentially possible that we may have another half a dozen Tier 1s, in which case that would pretty much use up the funds. So,
all right. Any questions or comments? I have a comment really for Mr. Kleindahl, for yourself, and you as well, Gene. How do we compare doing with other counties? I just feel that so positive that we're moving forward, we're all working together to help our businesses out as much as possible. And we recognize we can't make them whole, like you were saying, but we can sure slow the whole process down and slow the bleeding, let's put it that way. How do we compare to some of the other counties around?
I think we compare favorably. If you look at what, say, Hennepin County has done, and they're, of course, much larger. They've done, I think, about $45 million in assistance for COVID-19 business assistance for businesses, and we've done about 10%, and they're like 30 times our size. So I think we stack up reasonably well in terms of COVID-19 assistance.
Okay, Mr. Kleindahl.
I think what we have done differently, though, is instead of trying to give everybody a small piece and just make sure everybody got something, we're trying to make sure that the dollars we're giving out make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of giving everybody something, but it doesn't really help them, what we've done differently is we're trying to give the grants enough that makes a difference to keep their businesses viable.
And I want to recognize both the efforts of Gene and Larry here for the NPR. They did some yeoman work trying to reach out to businesses. It's not enough just to put a website link. Yeah. You actually have to reach out to business people. So,
okay. Well, thank you very much. And Gene, will you please, or Mrs. Pauley, sorry.
One comment to that I think is important to when you're talking about the hospitality businesses. I think another thing that I think our program did uniquely different is we did have, even though it was a small area amount, but we did include event centers in the allocation under Tier 2. And the reason for that is, as Aaron said, is you see the trends of what, and we worked with CVB in understanding what the industry, the hospitality industry was dealing with when we were developing the program on the front end. However, what we found out in talking to and kind of reaching out, and before the program is developed, is hearing from the event centers and the hotels that had event centers, they're kind of left out of everything. And what makes them uniquely different is they have such a huge capital outlay on space, and their monthly operating expenses is so much more than just a regular restaurant would be, because they have all of this space that can't generate any revenue, and yet it's not being addressed in any of the. It's almost like a third business under, if they have a hotel, meeting space, and restaurant, it's almost like a third business that wasn't being identified. And I think that was something uniquely different that our program looked at. And I think in talking to those that it made a big difference, even though there were only 3 of them for those 3 businesses. It was quite a difference. So again.
Okay, thank you. I just want to reemphasize too, of all the work and the time and the people involved, and you brought up the volunteers and the staff time of both agencies and that went into this, and it's good planning, and I think the results really show for it. So, thank you. Thank you. Anything, but you need a motion. We got a motion, we got to vote on that, correct? And at this point, no more questions or discussion or comment?
I would just say that perhaps as the House and Senate and President talk about the current one, they could contact these guys for a game plan on how to go about this. So.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, at this point, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. And thank you very much. Okay. At this point, we're going to move on. I am going to recess the Candido County Board of Commissioners meeting and open up the Candido County Drainage Authority Board. And I will call upon Ms. Lauren or Mr. Ingleby as our drainage manager. And this is your annual type of procedure will you explain this? Go ahead.
Right. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you for your time. I have before you, as I do each year, this time of year, a proposal for ditch levies on each individual ditch that needs funding and a levy for this year. The list you have in front of you are 51 ditch systems out of the 82 that we have in the county that we share with other counties. And I also provided a ditch repair lien history to give you a snapshot of how active or inactive, in some cases, each ditch system has been in the last 5 years. Each one of these ditch systems has a fund all of its own. Any ditch repairs that are needed on a particular ditch system are paid for in full, 100%, by the property owners that were identified in a viewer's report, either when that ditch system was established or when we went through a redetermination of benefits. So 100% of the funds needed to maintain a ditch system are borne by those property owners, not by the general fund and not by the remainder of the property tax payers in the county. Each one is very, very unique. Some ditch systems are small and they really don't need a whole lot of money to operate on a year-to-year basis. Some are larger and some need a lot of money to maintain that ditch system every year. For example, the very first one there, County Ditch 7, is a relatively small system over by Pennock, and the current balance on that is $1,437.50. And I propose with a 1% levy, and that is based on a 1% levy of the total benefits, that we raise $543.36 for 2021. Now that balance, that current balance, I spend a lot of time figuring out what that balance is. I start off with a report from the auditor's office, and they give me a figure, a balance for each one of these ditch systems at 12/31/2020. From that point on, I apply or I subtract my fees or my wages for inspections and repairs and the time that I spend on that particular ditch system. I also subtract the known expenses that I currently have on the books for that particular ditch system that maybe didn't get done last year. And if it's a system that has a lot of activity year to year, I'll add a little bit to that levy. I'll have a cushion there because I want to have that money in the account or a portion of it if we need that money for 2021. And I always want to try and stay a little bit ahead of the game so we don't have any of these systems far in the red. For example, if I don't levy or if I don't propose to levy funds from a project that was done in 2020, but I didn't get the invoice from the contractor until January, February, or March, if I don't levy those funds this year, then we have to wait until this time next year to levy those funds. We get half of it next year in April and half of it in November of next year. So we could be a year and a half behind, and that's what I really want to avoid. Also, with having a little bit of a balance in each one of these funds based on what's reasonable, I want to buffer those peaks where we have a high levy in 1 year. Most farmers or property owners, when I explain that to them, that we like to have, I'd rather levy, or a farmer would rather have a $500 assessment each year for 5 years instead of having 0 for 4 and then $2,500 on the 5th year. And that not only helps them, but it helps us with our balancing. So it's a balancing act. It's worked real well. Property owners that I explain that to do appreciate that. And the simple fact that we have a little bit of a levy each year means that we're trying to stay on top of maintaining the drainage systems that are vital for our agricultural community in this county. So I'd like to go through, I use County Ditch 7 as an example. The ones that have a negative balance in the current balance, I want to recover that plus a little bit. And the first one there is County Ditch 12. There isn't a whole lot of activity on that one on an annual basis, but we did have some significant repairs last year. The one I'd like to address next is County Ditch 26. That's in Irving Township, and it is a system that we went through a redetermination of benefits on. Those costs, including the buffer acquisition cost and time, and we did have some ditch cleaning. We have a current balance in the deficit of $159,000. So in order to recoup that, I'm proposing a 9% levy on the total benefits of $1.8 million. That will bring us in 2021 to $163,758.06. Now, knowing the climate and the property owners on that system, I think I would recommend spreading that out over a few years, because I think it's just going to be, for some of them, it's going to be too big of a hit, and I don't want to hit them that hard in 1 year. So on that one, I may recommend 3 or a 4, maybe a 5-year lien at 3 or 3.5% interest. I think people can handle that, but keep in mind that anyone at any time can pay off their ditch assessment to avoid future interest, and then they take care of that right away. They can do it before property tax statements are printed this spring, or they can do it next year or the year after at any time that they choose. So I would recommend a multi-year lien on that one. And once we go through this whole list, we can generally, we've done in the past, we can have one motion for the whole levy, but we need part of that motion to be, if we do choose to do a multi-year lien, what the terms and conditions of that are.
So, excuse me, so you can go through them all, then we'll go back and address them individually again?
No, we can.
Yeah.
We can.
So,
I'll go through
you
the
had
one.
a couple of suggestions for this one, multi-year. Do we have to be specific, how many years? And is that a recommendation at this point then?
I would ask, we could do this one at a time. So on County Ditch 26, I would like to ask for a recommendation, or a provided recommendation. I'd like details from you for the record, so we can, if you want to do a multi-year lien, and at what % interest, and then we can move on to the other ones. But
Rogers. Commissioner Emdek.
I'm a little confused. I thought I heard you say, let's go through them all, and then we could handle them in one motion if we want, or we can do them one at a time. I personally would prefer that we go through them all.
Let's do that.
And then if we have specific questions on them, because your recommendations may be different, they may not be different for each system.
Sure. Okay. Fair. That makes good sense.
3%.
So we can move on down the line here. Just basic routine maintenance, repairs, all the way down to County Ditch 58. That one also went through a redetermination of benefits, and we have a pretty sizable amount for that one to decide. We'll come back to that. I'll recommend a multi-year lien. Ditch 61, we went through a redetermination of benefits on that. Also, it's a small system. There's a deficit of $6,800. I did talk to the landowner who has the highest share of that, and he was okay with 1-year lien. He'd rather not deal with any interest. He was by far the highest. He was okay with it, so I'm going to recommend just 1 year on that, and then we're done. Ditch 64 and Ditch 65, so you know, both have a pump system. They're dependent upon a pump station, both of them. So therefore, we have monthly electrical fees, and we have, when anything mechanical, we have a lot of repair expenses. Now on 64, I believe we replaced at least one of the 2 pumps last year or the year before, and that was pretty spendy. But those folks there understand the need for the pump and the electrical expenses, and they're pretty accepting of these assessments. State Ditch 1, I'll also recommend a multi-year lien on that one. The rest of them here are pretty straightforward. As you can see on JD3, ST and K, that means we share that with Stearns and Candy, Ojai. We do have a positive balance of $4,700. I'm asking for a 2% levy, which will raise another just under $1,000. That system, we do have some cleaning, but this is in the northern part of the county. There's a lot of log jams, beaver dams. That's the type of activity on that one. So it doesn't take $10,000 a year to maintain it. It just takes time to deal with the log jams and the beaver dams and so on and so forth. The second page is pretty straightforward. JD 16, we had a fair amount of expense on that one, a little bit more than what we're used to or what I'm used to. And so those are pretty straightforward. Do we have any questions of me?
I do.
Commissioner Nissen, yes.
On
Proceed.
that one you just mentioned, there's a 37%. How do you propose that we handle that? There's only 66,000 total benefits.
Right. It's going to be, I am proposing 1 year. It is higher than we've had in the past. In 2019, we had $11,000 or almost $12,000 levy to do some repair work. Renville County has been pretty active on that system, so our property owners pay a share of that. So yes, $24,000 is a pretty sizable one.
Considering the benefits.
Considering the benefits. That one is currently undergoing a redetermination of benefits. So if that one is completed this year, we'll have a brand new assessment roll for next year, which will be spread out over many more people. Yeah. That's why I prefer to have this one taken care of 1 year so we start fresh next year. But it's a sizable one.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Okay.
You may also notice, just for humor, but County Ditch 15 has a total net benefits of $3,028. That's a fairly small system. That was established in March of 1900, and we're still running on the same benefit list of property owners. Now, it may seem odd, but there's some sloughs, there's some farmland, and there's recreational lands. It's probably not practical to do a redetermination of benefits on that system because the cost of a redetermination of benefits probably won't be worth it on that small system.
Mm-hmm.
And so the property owners there understand that, there's very few of them that they'll be continuing like they have in the past.
Okay.
Any other questions before we go back to County Ditch 26?
No further questions? Proceed.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Okay. The three systems that I would like you to consider a multi-year lien on: County Ditch 26, County Ditch 58, and State Ditch number 1. So if we look at County Ditch 26, I guess if we do a 3-year lien, what's the harm in going 4 or 5 in this economic time that people can still pay it off in 1 or 3 or let it ride the whole way?
You got a question over
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Endep?
Thank you. Just for a little bit of guidance, we recently did a joint ditch where we did maybe 2 of them, that we've done a multi-year lien and a set an interest rate. Can you refresh my memory what we did there?
Yes. Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Imdek, we did recently on Joint Ditch 29 that we share with Renville, Meeker. They set a 4-year term at 3% interest. On JD 52, Candy, Ohio, and Meeker Lateral A, that drainage authority set 10 years at 3.5% interest. So, but that was a sizable one. The JD 29, I think 4 years at 3% is pretty reasonable. The joint ditch number 1 that we just went through a redetermination of benefits on, that Drainage Authority Board approved a 7-year, 3% interest. That's not on your list here, but those are the ones that we've dealt with recently, for example.
Commissioner Nissen.
Do you want a motion on each one separately, or?
Maybe discussion for each one of these 3, and then that discussion can be incorporated in the motion? Is that appropriate?
Or we could vote each one separately, yeah. And then incorporate that whole thing in. Commissioner Emdek.
Yeah.
To be clear, why don't you take these 3 separate and then take out the rest?
Sure. Good idea, for sure.
And my question or comment is for discussion, may lead to a motion, but the reason I asked the question about the terms on the recent ones and the interest rates, I prefer to be as consistent as we can. I don't think there is any special outliers on any of these that would suggest that 10 years or 7 years or something different from the 4 years would make more sense. But, I think some consistency would be in order here. So I'd be in favor of doing them as one, but I would, if other people feel strongly about individual ones being different rates, we can discuss it. But I guess I'd be in favor of doing them as one.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask my friend if he's thinking in the range of that 4 years, 3%. Is that, in order to be consistent, is that what the commissioner's thinking?
Well, that's the reason I asked the question was to get guidance on how we handle these, and I think that's perfectly logical to do what seems to have been. I know it's a eyeball average, but for these, I would say 4% or 3% in 4 years would be reasonable.
And that would have been my guidance as well.
Okay. Any other questions,
No,
comments?
I think
Commissioner
that
Anderson?
sounds right.
That sounds reasonable?
For all 3, then we could, seems to me we're all kind of in agreement as to.
So,
I would
motion.
I would move the approval of those 3 systems.
3%.
3% 4 year.
3, 4. Okay,
I'll
4,
second
3.
that.
Okay, we have a motion.
It
Do
is.
I have a second? Second by Commissioner Anderson.
That's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
No,
ahead.
discussion?
All right, no.
Okay, any
I
discussion?
do have one last comment, just to be sure that, and I know the answer, but I just want everybody to understand that anybody can pay these off early at any time. They
Yeah.
don't have to pay the interest if they
Sure.
don't want to, and so.
That is correct, and pending the outcome of today's discussion and action, and perhaps tomorrow's when we talk about JD1, I'll be sending out postcards to every single one of the property owners that are affected by these multi-year liens. They'll be, in that postcard, I'll tell them that if they pay before the property tax statements are printed this spring, it won't show up on their property tax statement and they won't be charged any interest. There'll be a deadline there because it's time sensitive at the auditor's office. So I'll be sending out several hundred postcards, but that's all right. We need to give them that option.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for ditch 26, 58, and 1 at 4 years and 3%. Am I correct on this?
That is correct.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
I
proceed.
would then move the ditch repair lien list for the balance of that list that we approved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve all the other ditch systems as presented. Do we have a second?
I'll second
A
that.
second by Commissioner Emdek. Any further discussion on that? Not? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, passed unanimously. Oh, we
Thank
got
you.
through it. Good job. At this point, I am going to close the Candido County Ditch Authority meeting and reconvene the Candido County Board of Commissioners meeting. And I call upon Administrator Kleindahl with some administrative updates.
Yes, Mr. Chair. One addition to the administrative update, I have lease number 11468, addendum number 16. This is the reconciliation for the MTC building. As you know, the last couple of meetings, I came and talked about the sale of that building. And for us to close out with the state, we have to reconcile each year. And as I stated in the past, when we do the lease with the state of Minnesota, we can't lose money, nor can we make money. So in 2020, we owe the state of Minnesota, as part of the reconciliation, $50,174.94. They paid us $128,000 in the lease, and then because of what the expenditures were, we now have to return $50,000 of that. I will be bringing the other reconciliation for the 16-bed, but we're not finished with that. But in order to keep the sale and the process going, they wanted me to get this done today so they can proceed with their necessary documents.
Okay.
So I'm asking for a motion.
Rephrase the motion that you suggested.
Yes, I would ask for approval to enter into the lease amendment number 16, lease number 11468. The total amount that we owe the state of Minnesota is $50,174.94 as an overpayment for 2020.
Okay. Do I have a motion by Commissioner Nissen? Do I have a second? The chair will second it. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, we got some committee updates and to fill some committees. Commissioner Emdike has presented 3 names, and I don't know if you want me to, one is Sherry Johnson for the Candy Renville Public Health Advisory Committee. And then he also has recommended,
For extension, if I may, for extension, Julie Prohl,
Judy Pearl, yep.
and the library board,
Library Board, you had Deb Forbrook. And if there's any other commissioners that have committee members to fill, we could take those in this one motion.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other committee members?
Yes, I got one to add. Mr. Dick Husing to the Board of Adjustment.
So we would need a motion for approve those 4.
For the 4, then.
Yeah.
So I would make the motion, and then I have a question.
Okay. Motion to approve those 4 appointments, and I will second that. And Commissioner Emdike.
So my question is, the people who serve on these committees, are they supposed to be residents of the county?
Each committee is a little different, but you would want the people to come from the county you're having represent the citizens here. I think we do have somebody on planning and zoning who does not reside in the county. Each committee is a little different, but it's your call, but I would recommend we have citizens from our county.
Thank you.
Yep. Any further questions or comments before we vote? I'll call for the vote. All in favor for these 4 appointments, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
Just for some fodder, so you can think about this in the future. A week and a half ago, I think you got an email from AMC regarding their executive committees and a lot of different handouts. I would ask that you look at some of those handouts that were in there. And one of the things they talked about is, some protocols that we could look at from a board. How do we operate? What things can become? So just those are things that AMC Executive Committee is talking about. I think Roger had sent them out to as the District 6 AMC. We don't have to take any action, but I think those are some things that we want to start looking at. How do we operate? Should we be making those some of our things that we want to talk about? I think it's a great time to be kind of considering those and taking a look at We haven't done that in the past, but maybe, you know, in this time that we're in, maybe it's a good time to look at that and kind of spell out what is our protocols and how do we operate as a board? How do we put things in and operate? So those are good things I think that we're trying to do as statewide. And so I was just going to bring that email to your attention, and I know you get tons of emails every day, and just wanted to talk about that. Also, you probably talked about emails. You got an email this morning about the legislative conference with AMC. I would encourage you to register for that and get it's a Zoom this year, but it's a good opportunity again to keep updated with legislative stuff that's going on. As you heard this morning from Tammy Jo Lyberg, you know, even with community corrections, there's possible cuts coming up for Candido County and those 33 counties. A lot of things are going on, and we need to be involved.
Commissioner Emdek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe just a poll, and for the new guys, you probably don't know what legislative conference is, but registration is $75, and it's probably easier if Karen does it on our behalf, so.
One bill, okay.
Yeah.
Just coordinate with Karen, and she can get you registered, and probably want to do that sooner than later.
Yeah, is there anybody who isn't planning on
Yeah, that's
attending?
what I was going to
The
suggest.
only
if I
question I would
may.
have, if we do it that way, how will each person get a link? When you register, that oftentimes you get a link when you register.
I think,
But she'll still do it individually for us,
yeah, I
correct?
think Karen has done that
Okay.
for us in the
I think she did it for
annual
or
conference.
whatever, about a month
Okay,
ago.
I'm just was bringing it up.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm assuming then that we can let Karen know that
Yep,
total board's going to register.
Maybe
for
you
that.
do it on our behalf.
I can do
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
That's all I have.
And
Mr.
that's all you
Chair.
have? Okay, and going back, I agree with you. I looked at some of that stuff you just were talking about too, and I think we have a great board and we don't have to worry about some of those things, but I think looking down the road, and it's just a good message to the community where we're coming from, so maybe we should review some of those at one of the meetings, some of the protocol stuff. Anything else at this point? Otherwise, we're running out of time, but I think we can run through some committee reports really quick, if you will, please. And I would like to start with Commissioner Gardner, and we'll
Thank you,
work our
Mr.
way
Chair.
this way.
We're currently going through the initial AMC new commissioner trainings, and their phrase, "You're going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose," is a pretty appropriate description of what we're going through so far. So, but
Yes.
met with Convention and Visitors Bureau. Of course, the pandemic continues to greatly affect the entire hospitality and tourism industries. Tourism Board also met. They made a determination that they were not going to participate in the Sioux Falls show. They're just out of an overabundance of caution, not going to attend that. So they're literally not going to be at any shows this year. Attended the HRA and Woodland Centers mental health housing meetings. I was reached out to by my friend and former Wilmer Planning Commission colleague, Rhonda Otteson. Rhonda is the executive director of the Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless, and she extended an invitation to attend an online session on February 8th with other outstate and suburban city and county leaders and AMC and League of Minnesota Cities officials. The MCH is going to share their plans for the 2021 legislative session. There will be some group conversations to share some intel, offer some strategic plans, and determine if that group has a desire to continue to meet during the legislative session. There may be some overlap with what they're discussing and what we see over at HRA and Woodland Centers housing programming that might make this a pertinent session. If anyone else on the board wishes to take part, I'll make sure that we get an invite, and perhaps I should just share that with Larry and then have him parcel that out. Attended a commissioner training session for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services. There'll be several more of those this month. EDC Governing Board, I would imagine Commissioner Nissen is going to talk about that. Attended the annual meeting for the Humane Society. and I'll be on their executive committee also. I'm a former board member and chair over there, so it's kind of like going back home. Supporting Hands, Joint Powers met last night. Tourism and Leisure, and Candy High Renville Public Advisory met yesterday as well. And finally, I did meet with Mr. Odens and received a nice briefing from him last week, and a tour over at Public Works. And if we ever get any snow, I'm up for a ride along with one of their snowplow operators. So that's about it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. It sounds been very busy.
I
Yes, sir,
have 4 or 5 different ones, but I'm just be real brief. Counties providing technology, we had a rather short meeting, but one of the things that I serve on the Personnel Committee, and we adopted a promotions policy for the folks that are working there so we can move them up in an orderly manner and set some standards for what we are looking for to promote folks. The numbers are pretty good. They're a little bit less than last year. We've added, I think, a county, but I can't remember which one it is right now, so I won't go on record there. West Central Industries, everything's going along pretty well over there. The numbers, because of PPP and some of the other things that have come along, are looking okay, even though with the recycling thing that kind of fell apart. But so far it hasn't affected. They're looking at some different uses of the space they have, and nothing really other than that. Pretty routine. EDC, Joint Powers Board met, and I just lost my page there. I can't remember what we put you on. I think it might have been the auditing committee. We kept the same officers as.
Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And there's several others.
You
we'll
can't
remind
leave
you to-
early, you see, that's not good.
I did say that I would accept my punishment.
There you go, there you go. But we re-elected I was a re-elected chair, and Commissioner Osmus was re-elected vice chair, and she's also going to be the representative to the Joint Operations Board. Other than that, as we talked about a lot of things, the minutes from last meeting were 83 pages long, so don't expect me to cover everything we talked about. But it went well. We're working on the CARES thing, as you all heard today, and that's going well. We've got I think they mentioned that the Finance Committee had met to evaluate 27 times, which is a lot of meetings for those folks, and they serve on a volunteer basis. So if you see any of them, say thank you. Okay. And they're all bankers, so, which is good. We want people that understand lending and so forth. Yes, did we approve of a loan to the? I'm not sure. I better not say anything about that. That's EDC broadband met yesterday at noon, and I won't take any Roger's thunder. Maybe he wants to talk about that too, but we're working very closely with the folks out at Chicago Federated to do some work in northwestern Candioi County. We're looking at 3 townships, possibly 4. Connie does a real good job of organizing that and putting the numbers together. We had engineering studies for 3 or 4 other townships. If we get a grant, that'll help us with that. But the grants, money's tight there too, and so we got to do our best job. And if we do get a grant, then we're going to have to all be pretty good salesmen to get out there and get people signed up. Going back to the Joint Powers Board, and maybe you all are aware of this, but Connie has tendered her resignation.
That's a good point.
So she won't be around after May, other than maybe to help with some CARES things, to wrap up and those kinds of things. But we did take a look at the job description for that position. And what is it? Business, I can't remember the exact.
business
Title,
development specialist.
Business Development Specialist, yep. And so wish Connie well, she's done a great job, and she wants to spend some time with family and do a little traveling, so
Okay.
that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Nissen. Very good comments about Connie. Yeah, she's certainly going to be hard to replace. Sometimes being last is probably easier. I just want to echo the Woodland Centers Board. They already talked about that. The EDC covered that really, really well, and I'm on that committee as well. And I know I spent hours trying to read all that information, but now we're kind of up to speed, I think, so maybe it will be a little bit less time as we go on. I had a Prairie Lakes Youth Program meeting, and we're still concerned financially. We're still got our head above water, and that's really good news. And we have 23 applications for the director's position, so we're in the process of narrowing that down. And the end of this month, we're going to start some interviewing. We're going to try and narrow it down to at least 11 before we move forward. That is probably the biggest highlight I have. So I'll pass it on to you, Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I had several committee meetings as well. The AS meeting, and we also dealt with, I was invited to the Big Candioi Lake Association meeting, and that's where they talked about the Bonnie Beach with Santec to do a study or whatever on their septic systems and stuff and what to do there. Also met with the Pioneer Land Library system. One thing I found out I didn't really know, but I did ask them, and the libraries are open. They've been open for quite a while, and they just limit it to the number of people that can come and go. And so just kind of a public information thing is that it is nice to hear that the libraries are open. Another thing we did with one other committee was extension service. One thing they said at that meeting was that certain things have actually gone up because of the coronavirus. One thing is like master gardeners and interest in gardening has gone way up in the last year because I suppose people didn't have anything else to do, so they all took up gardening. So I did do a Drug Force Coalition meeting. They're going to be at the Spring Expo at the Civic Center April 9th and 10th, or that's what their plan is. If that's open at that time, I think they'll know pretty soon here whether or not that's going to go on or not. So another thing was the United Community Action Partnership meeting that I went to. That one had, I think, 186 pages to go through. And I skimmed it. I did not read everything. So, 'cause I got it about a day or two ahead of time is all. But one thing that they did have, they're building a Head Start building down in Marshall, I believe it's called, and then they did have some building issues with the contractors, and so they're trying to resolve that. And I think they're doing a good job with discussions with that. So I think that's, I did community transit too as well. So not a whole lot there, I guess.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner Anderson. And I just want to make a comment about sometimes there's been concerns, I think, in the past with some new commission not getting enough committees. Well, I think you guys have been very busy. I appreciate all you're doing. Commissioner Emdek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just talk about two of them. One of them is a state committee. The Association of Minnesota Counties has a committee called the Business Partnership Committee. And what that committee does is it cultivates and works with our business partners at the Association of Minnesota Counties. So when we go to our first conference, and Commissioner Gardner has probably been to League of Minnesota Cities where it would be similar. You'll find out when you get there. There will be several presenters there, people who sell us blades for the road graders and people who sell us insurance and do architecture. They're the ones who really support those conferences. We pay a fee to be there, but most conferences, they tend to, even when I was in other private organizations, you tend to cover all your costs with sponsorships, and then your operating for the year comes from your membership. So they're very important. They're looking for members. Harlan was on that committee, and of course he's retired, but if anybody's interested in serving, contact either Commissioner Schulte from Anoka County or Julie Ring at or Lori Klupak's at the AMC. One of the big discussions the other day was whether people are wanting to move away from Microsoft products to Google products. And seems like the young people really want to go to a more modern product like Google, and the old people want to hang on to Microsoft. And we have to, it was a good discussion. And then I would just add a little bit to the broadband. Yesterday, as we talked about broadband, and as you may or may not know, it is the number one legislative priority for the Association of Minnesota Counties this year is broadband. And at our discussion yesterday, so the broadband border-to-border broadband grant was funded at $20 million per year in the last biennium. So that would be last year and in 2021, that's what's available. And nobody seemed to remember yesterday, Raleigh, but I think I read it just this morning that the governor is proposing $100 million in the next biennium. And I think the House is actually proposing $120 million in the next biennium. So that would be $60 million per year. Now that's a long ways from being passed, but I think it speaks to the importance of it. I was, and so was Commissioner Nissen, we were in the Capitol on March 12th of last year when the governor and all his staff were busy talking about the executive orders and the shutting down. We were there for the Broadband Coalition. And in that day, somebody from our group said, hey, this may be an opportunity to emphasize the importance of broadband. And sure it has been, because everybody's talking about how it's impacted their community. So as you talk to your legislators, they're not all on board with this. So encourage them.
All right. And anything else? Otherwise, I hereby adjourn the meeting. All right.